Hello friends and neighbors, Matt Hatter here. Welcome to my new reviewing space. Introductions out of the way, let's talk about Patton. I haven't done a What's All the Fuss About review for a while, but in the last What's All the Fuss About review, I mistakenly said that the next What's All the Fuss About review was going to be about Frankenstein, but then a subscriber pointed out to me, and I forget who you are, I'm sorry, but thank you for pointing this out to me, that I misread the list and that the next review on the list should be Patton, the original number 89 on the AFI's Top 100 list, which was then removed from the revision. This is the epic war film from the 70s, starring George C. Scott in the title role and Carl Malden. And for George C. Scott, who was a phenomenal actor, this was the role of a lifetime. A character who was so complex and had so many flaws and virtues that this film was essentially a character study of the man himself. It would have been very, very easy for this film to devolve into a pro-war picture or an anti-war picture or something just incredibly cliched and biased, but it didn't do that. Despite how volatile and controversial this general was, it managed to portray him in a very ambivalent light. And it was such a success that the American Film Institute felt the need to put it on their top 100 list the first time around, but let's take another look at it and see if we can figure out what's all the fuss about.
Do you follow me?
Not guilty.
Fight in here. This is a
You're
war.
out, kid.
Why is the run going so serious?
This is one of those few instances when it's actually really easy to synopsize a film. What's Patton about? Patton. Pretty exclusively, this movie is the story of General George S. Patton. He's the center of the story, he's in almost every scene, and even the few scenes that he's not in are about him. It's his fighting strategies during World War II, his war philosophies, his victories, his defeats, his life. Patton is the very center of this movie's universe, and after all, why shouldn't he be? For a movie so exclusively Patton, this only makes sense. It's essentially how Patton saw himself. It's not merely that he is the best at what he does, he sees himself as a legend, far beyond the scope of mere mortal men. Simply put, he knows he's the best. It's not an opinion to him, it's fact. Like I said before, Patton is cast in a pretty ambivalent light in this movie. The story is based on other people's perceptions of Patton and not on any of his own writings. So it's hard to say whether this portrayal is entirely accurate to what Patton was really like, but George C. Scott's acting kind of fills in the gaps for us. And just like other people did, we see that Patton is a brilliant general and a great strategic thinker, but also often reckless and controversial in his methods. In fact, for a man who is so thoroughly military, Patton has very little regard for authority. The movie doesn't portray Patton as being wholly right or wholly wrong, and in fact the war that he's fighting is similarly cast in the same light. So what's all the fuss about? This is more than just a movie about Patton's life. It's a story of a philosophy of war from a man who is thoroughly obsessed with it. Fighting war is all that Patton knows, it's all that he seems to care about, and we see him both in his element and out of it. Scott gives a many-faceted portrayal of a man trying desperately not to portray the fact that he is merely a man, flawed and often lost. And through his eyes and the eyes of the people around him, we are presented the question, is war right or wrong? And we also discover in the course of this film that there is no easy answer to this question. The film came out in the midst of the war in Vietnam, when the romanticization of war that existed in Patton's day was rapidly disappearing. The film has been accused of being anti-war, and it's also been accused of being pro-war, and neither one of these are correct. It's really a remarkably objective portrayal of both Patton and the war that he's fighting. Parts of it are romanticized, parts of it are harsh, and parts of it don't have any particular emotion attached to them whatsoever. It just presents the war and the man and allows the audience to pass judgment for themselves. No easy task for such a volatile man or such a volatile conflict. And that objective portrayal, more than anything, is what makes this film so brilliant. It presents us with a lot of stuff, but it doesn't cast it in any particular light. It just opens the door, allows us to view it, and make our own decisions. It was removed from the list the second time around, but it really is an incredible film. I think the fuss was definitely merited, and on the worth meter, I give this a worth owning. And now for something completely different, the next film on this list is the 1938 screwball comedy, Bringing Up Baby. See you next time.